Hey, how's it going, everyone? My name is Sparsh Garg from India, and today we are going to be looking at a debate that Mr. Jordan Peterson had with Cathy Newman on Channel 4 some years back. This debate is highly acclaimed, and a lot of people have been introduced to Jordan Peterson because of this debate. I don't want to waste any more time. I'm sure whoever is going to watch this video will already know who Jordan Peterson is. I know about the guy. I do not know a lot about him, but I have heard tidbits and bits of him talking on Twitter and talking on JRE as well. And he seems to be a pretty genuine guy. All right. So I'm just gonna start the video and let's see what that debate is about. All right, here we go.
Tell me why. Well, because there's nothing uglier than an old infant. There's nothing good about it. People who don't grow up don't find the sort of meaning in their life that sustains them through difficult times, and they are certain to encounter difficult times. And they're left bitter and resentful and without purpose and adrift and hostile and resentful and vengeful and arrogant and deceitful and of no use to themselves and of no use to anyone else and no partner for a woman, and there's nothing in it that's good.
So you said,
Okay, right there. First of all, this man, just from the starting 37 seconds of it, I can see that this man is a very articulate man. Okay, he knows his vocabulary is very strong. And to be very honest, before I go any further, I can totally agree with what he said just now. And we can see this a little bit, in our society as well. I don't know what is happening. Actually, I do know what is happening in America and in the Western world. I'm really sorry to say this, it might just be on the verge of collapse. Okay. People do not know what they want to do with their life. Men, they are actually looked down upon if they show any kind of masculine trait, right? And to be very honest, personally, I think that there's this attack on not men, but masculinity in general. Okay. And this thing is a lot bigger than just an attack on men, because it is an attack on masculine traits. And what are masculine traits? Non-agreeableness, there's aggressiveness, there's a lot of traits that go ahead and question the society, right? These men who are hardworking and women that are hardworking. This is an attack on those people that would want to ask questions from the society and from the leaders, which sometimes can be difficult for them to answer. And it is very very easy if the masculine traits do not exist in the society. It gets really easy to control that society.
I mean, that sounds pretty bad. You're saying
It's
there's a
bad.
crisis of masculinity. I mean, what do you do about it?
Okay, there we go.
You help people understand why it's necessary and important for them to grow up and adopt responsibility. Why that isn't a shake your finger and get your act together sort of thing. Why it's more like
Hmm.
a delineation of the kind of destiny that makes life worth living. I've been telling young men,
Right.
but it's not. I wasn't specifically aiming this message at young men to begin with. It just kind of turned out that way.
And it's mostly, you admit, it's
Okay,
mostly
yeah.
men listening. I mean,
It is.
90%
As I
viewers
was
are
saying,
men,
Well, it's
right?
about
he's saying
80% on YouTube, which is YouTube is a male domain primarily, so it's hard to tell how much of it is because YouTube is male and how much of it is because of what I'm saying. But what I've
he's a
been
very
telling young
smart
men is
guy.
that there's an actual reason why they need to grow up, which is that they have something to offer. You know, that people have within them this capacity to set the world straight, and that's necessary to manifest in the world, and that also doing so is where you find the meaning that sustains you in life.
So what's gone wrong then?
Oh God, all sorts of things have gone wrong. I don't think that young men are hear words of encouragement. Some of them never in their entire lives, as far as I can tell. That's what they tell me. And the fact that
Oh
the
my
words
God.
that I've been speaking, the YouTube lectures that I've done and put online, for example, have had such a dramatic impact is an indication that young men are starving for this sort of message, because, like, why in the world would they have to derive it from a lecture on YouTube? You know,
How does he think? I, I, you know, I really want to know, like, promptly, how does he have these things to say just like that? Like, I want to think like this, man. This is
they're not being taught that it's important to develop yourself.
But does it bother you that your audience is predominantly male? Does
what the fuck is this woman talking about? He just said that I upload a lot of my things on YouTube, and YouTube is predominantly a male driven platform. He answered your question, women. Is this gonna be like this only? Is she gonna keep asking the same question again and again? Because I get frustrated. I get frustrated by media, and this is the kind of woman that I think I'm not gonna like very much. I'm so sorry.
that isn't that a bit divisive?
No, I don't think so. I mean,
How is it divisive?
it's no more divisive than the fact that YouTube is primarily male and Tumblr
Exactly.
is
Well, that's
primarily
pretty divisive,
female.
isn't
Well,
it?
but Tumblr is primarily female.
But you're just saying that's the way it is.
Yeah.
Well, I'm not saying anything. It's just an observation that that's the way it is. There's plenty of women that are watching my lectures and coming to my talks and buying my books. It's just that the majority of them happen to be men.
What's in it for the women, though?
Well, what sort of partner do you want? Do you want an overgrown child? Or do you want someone to contend with?
Holy
So you're saying
shit.
some sort of duty to sort of help fix the crisis of masculinity.
It depends on what they want. No, I mean, it's exactly how I laid it out.
How?
Women
Okay.
deeply want men who are competent and powerful. And I don't mean power in that they can exert tyrannical control over others. That's not power. That's just corruption. Power is competence. And
How does he
why in the
think?
world would you not want a competent partner? Well, I know why, actually. You can't dominate a competent partner. So if you
The day I start thinking like this, I just have to say it again. His vocabulary is very strong. And that helps in articulation because he knows the words that he wants to use, and those words are so precise in what he wants to say that it comes out so beautifully. This man, in just the start, almost 4 minutes, is a
want
genius.
want to
domination.
dominate. Is that what you're saying?
No, I'd say women who have had their relationships impaired with
I'm already getting annoyed with this woman.
their relationships with men impaired and who are afraid of such relationships will settle for a weak partner because they can dominate them. But it's a suboptimal solution.
Do you
It
think
does
that's
no
what
Exactly.
women are
good.
doing?
I think there's a substantial minority of women who do that.
Substantial minority of the woman that is doing that.
Although the partners get the advantage of not having to take any responsibility.
But what gives you the right to say that? I mean, maybe that's how women want their relationships, those women. I mean, you're making these vast generalizations.
He's not make.
So you've done your research and women are unhappy dominating.
Oh my god. Okay, I'm gonna enjoy it.
Long-term solution.
Okay, you said
Right.
it's making them
Same
miserable.
thing. Yes, it is. And it depends on the time frame. I mean, there's intense pleasure in momentary domination. That's why people do it all the time. But it's no formula for a successful long-term relationship. That's reciprocal, right? Any long-term relationship is reciprocal, virtually by definition.
Right, you want your partner to challenge you as well.
To you from the book, where you say there are whole disciplines in
On
universities
all levels,
designed
intellectually and
hostile
every
towards men. These are
way.
the areas of study dominated by the postmodern stroke neo-Marxist claim that Western culture in particular is an oppressive structure created by white men to dominate and exclude women. But then I want to put
minorities too dominate.
Okay, sure. But I want to put to you that here in the UK, for example, let's take that as an example, the gender pay gap stands at just over 9%. You've got women at the BBC recently saying that the broadcaster is illegally paying them less than men to do the same job. You've got only 7 women running the top FTSE 100 companies.
Yeah.
So it seems to a lot of women that they're still being dominated and excluded, to quote your words back to you.
It does seem that way, but multivariate analysis of the pay gap indicate that it doesn't
Multivariate analysis.
But that's just
Okay.
multivariate.
So I am just going to stop this right here, and I want to ask this. I think I know where the discussion is going. For example, like, what kind of job women are in. For example, the jobs in STEM fields will pay a lot more compared to the jobs in, hospitable industries. For example, nurses and all of those industries. And how many hours women are working. So, for example, where I work, right? This is just my observation. I'm not saying this is everywhere. We are working from home. Okay, my job, even before the pandemic, was work from home job only. Now, every chance I got, I always do overtime, because when we do overtime, hourly wages, we get double of what we were supposed to get. Okay, so for example, if I'm making, I don't know, $15 per hour, I'll be making $30 for that same hour if it is an overtime hour, right? So that's how overtime works here, at least in where I work, right? And I and all of my male friends, as long as they're in their 20s, right? Every one of us did overtime every chance we got. Even if we didn't have an overtime slot available, we ask our managers that we need an overtime, because that makes us a lot of money, right? Double the money. It's great. And I have not seen women. Now, my women colleagues are great. They are hardworking individuals. Some of them are married, some of them are not married, right? All the variety. But I do not see women colleagues of mine doing overtimes as often as a lot of my male colleagues will do. Okay. And that shows in our salary at the end of the month. And it's not that they are bitter about it. My women colleagues, they're not bitter about it. They just know that, we did overtime, and that's why we got a lot of money in our salary. Mind you, we are working from home, so they do not have to leave anywhere. There's no boundaries or no obstacle like that here. Okay, as long as you're working from home, you don't have to go anywhere. You can pull an hour worth of overtime. If you're not doing that, that's on you. Okay.
True, is it?
That's
I mean, that
absolutely
9% pay gap, that's a gap between median hourly earnings
Yeah.
between men and women.
But there's
That
multiple,
exists.
yeah, but there's multiple reasons for that. One of them
Hmm.
is gender, but it's not the only reason. Like if you're a social scientist worth your salt, you never do
Worth
a
your
multivariate
salt.
analysis. Like you say,
Okay.
well, women in aggregate are paid less than men. Okay, well then we break it down by age, we break it down by occupation, we break it down by interest, we break it down by personality.
But you're saying basically it doesn't matter if women aren't getting to the top, because that's what's skewing that gender pay gap, isn't it? You're saying, well, that's just a fact of
No,
life.
it's saying
Women
it
aren't
doesn't
necessarily
matter.
going to get to the top.
No, I'm not saying it doesn't matter either.
You're saying
I'm
it's a
saying
fact
there are
of life.
multiple reasons for it.
Yeah, but
and that
those
aren't being
reasons,
taken into
why
account.
should women put up with those reasons?
Don't put up with those.
Why should women be
put up with it?
content
I'm not
not
saying
to
that
get
they
to the
should
top?
put up with it. I'm saying that the claim that the wage gap between men and women is only due to sex is wrong. And it is wrong. There's no doubt about that. The multivariate analysis have been done. So I can give you an
You keep
example.
on talking about
Wait a sec.
multivariate analysis.
Let me
No,
give
no,
you
no,
an
no. But
example.
I'm saying that 9% pay gap
Yeah.
exists.
Yeah.
That's a gap between men and women. I'm not saying why it exists, but it exists. Now,
Yeah, but
if
you
you're
have
a
to say
woman,
why
that
it
seems
exists.
pretty unfair.
You have to say why it exists.
Exactly.
You agree that it's unfair. If you're a woman,
Not necessarily.
and on average you're getting paid
Depends
less
on the
than a
reason,
man, that's
whether it's
unfair.
fair or unfair.
It depends on why it's happening. I'll give
Exactly.
you an example. Okay. There's a personality trait known as agreeableness.
Okay,
Agreeable
there we
people are
go.
compassionate and polite. And
Uh-huh.
agreeable people get paid less than less agreeable people for the same job. Women are more agreeable than men.
Again, a vast generalization. Some
It's not
women
a
are not more
generalization.
agreeable than
Yes,
men.
that's true. But That's right. And some women get paid more than men.
Ah!
Women are too agreeable to get the pay rises they deserve.
No, I'm saying that that's one component of a multivariate equation.
Oh my God, this.
Salary. It accounts for maybe 5% of the variance, something like that.
So surely
you
the
need about
answer-
another 18 factors, one of which is gender. And there is prejudice, there's no doubt about that, but it accounts for a much smaller proportion of the variance.
Do you notice every time, she sees that maybe he's making my own point, she doesn't stop him in between. Every time he's trying to make a point that goes anywhere, on the lines of what she does not agree with, she will just try to say what you're saying, so what you're saying, or she will try to disrupt him. Okay, but see, this happened here. He was saying something else and she tried to disrupt him, but then he said one of those reasons is gender, and the moment he started saying that, she just stopped talking.
There's no doubt about that. Another
See.
18 factors, one of which is gender. And there is
See,
there's no
she
doubt
stopped.
about that, but it accounts for a much smaller proportion of the
This
variance.
woman is a manipulative witch. I'm sorry.
Okay, so rather than denying the pay gap exists, which is what you did at the beginning of this conversation,
He never denied it.
women, rather than being agreeable and not asking for a pay rise, go and ask for a pay rise. Make yourself disagreeable with your boss.
Oh, definitely, there's that. But I also didn't deny it existed. I denied it existed because of gender.
Okay.
See,
Right.
I'm very, very, very careful with my words.
So the pay gap exists, you accept that, but you're saying, I mean, the pay gap between men and women exists. But you're saying it's not because of gender; it's because women are too agreeable to ask for pay rises. So
It's
make
one
them,
of the reasons.
One of the reason, woman.
not get them to ask for a pay rise.
I've
Wouldn't
done
that
that.
be a fairer
I've done
way
that
of proceeding?
many, many times in my career.
And they
I've
just don't.
counseled. Oh, they do it all the time.
He's a clinical psychologist. He does it all the time, of course.
As a clinical psychologist,
See?
assertiveness training. So you might say, often you treat people for anxiety, you treat them for depression, and maybe the next most common category after that would be assertiveness training. And so I've had many, many women, extraordinarily competent women, in my clinical and consulting practice, and we put together strategies for their career development that involve continual pushing, competing for higher wages, and often tripled their wages within a 5-year period, teaching
you
them how to
celebrate that?
negotiate. Of course.
So,
Of
do
course.
you agree that you would be happy if that pay gap was eliminated completely?
It
Because
would
that's all
depend.
the radical feminists are saying.
It would depend on how it was eradicated and how
Right.
the disappearance of it was measured.
And you're saying if
Things you
it's at the
can't- you
cost
can't-
of men, that's a problem.
Oh, there's all sorts of things that it could be at the cost of. It could even be at the cost of women's own interests.
Huh.
Because they might not be happy if they get equal pay.
No, because it might interfere with other things that are causing the pay gap that women are choosing to do.
Like having children.
Right.
Well,
Maybe.
or choosing careers that actually happen to be paid less, which women do a lot of.
Right.
Why shouldn't women have the right to choose not to have
Hospitality
children?
industry.
Choose those demanding
They
careers.
do. They can. Yeah, that's fine.
But you're saying that makes them unhappy, by and large.
I'm saying that. No, I'm not saying that. I actually haven't said that so far.
You're
in the
saying
program.
it makes them miserable.
No, I
at the
said that
beginning.
what was making them
Ring! How did this woman land a career as a journalist? Are all the you see, I personally till now used to think that journalists in India are bad, right? Because they just don't talk about anything, basically. But at least they listen, okay? What I mean is, when someone else is saying something, they do understand it and they don't mince those things. And even if they're making a counter argument to that, there is a kind of wit involved behind that counter argument. You might not be able to hear it because there's a lot of bah, 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 bah going on in the Indian media, but he says something, she understands something else completely, Or maybe she's just trying to make him out to be a devil that she thinks he is. I don't know. But as far as I can see, she seems pretty serious in what she says, and he has never, to this point, ever said that. What is this woman's IQ? I have to ask this. I'm sorry. Does she even have, any logical reasoning or comprehensive skills, or she's just sitting there to just say, so you're saying that? I don't know.
Miserable was having weak partners.
Right.
That makes them miserable.
Right.
I would say that many women around the age of, I would say between 28 and 32, have a career family crisis that they have to deal with. And I think that's partly because of the
This is
foreshortened
getting
time
frustrating.
frame that women have to contend
I have to
with.
say this.
Women have to get the major pieces of their life put together faster than men, which is also partly why men aren't under so much pressure to grow up. So because for the typical woman, she has to have her career and family in order pretty much by the time she's 35.
Right, because after that, I don't know, the market starts to shrink for her. Okay? I'm not saying that they will not get the man of their dreams then, but career market stays the same. Hell, it even is better for them if even at the age of 35 they were single-sightedly concentrating on their career. It's great, fantastic, more power to you. Okay, good job. But after 35, one of the other priority that a woman might have, I'm not saying that they will, but a huge majority of women, one other priority that they might have in their life, that other priority maybe is to get married, to have a family, to have children, to take care of those children, to take care of their husband. Maybe. I'm not saying that all of them do, but maybe a lot of them. That other priority, the choices in that other priority starts to start to go down. They that those choices start to shrink, and that is why women in general have to get a lot of aspects of their life in order a lot earlier than men. That makes sense, but I'm sure that this woman will find some way to skew it to make him out to be a devil. I'm sure.
Because otherwise the options start to run out. And so that puts a tremendous amount of stress on women, especially at the end of their 20s.
I think I take issue with the idea of the typical woman because, all women are different. And that's what I want to just put another quote to you from the book.
You did say a lot of women.
The same in others.
Okay, you say
You're right.
women become more vulnerable when they have children.
Oh,
And
yes.
you talked in one of your YouTube interviews about crazy harpy sisters. So,
Was that?
simple question. Is gender equality a myth in your view? Is that something that's just never going to happen?
It depends on what you mean by equality.
Being
if
treated
you mean
fairly,
men and women,
getting the same opportunities?
Great.
fairly, we could get to a point where people were treated fairly or more fairly. I mean, people are treated pretty fairly in Western culture already, but we can.
But they're really not, though, are they? I mean, otherwise, why would there only be 7 women running FTSE 100 companies in the UK? Why would there still be a pay gap, which we've discussed at length? Why are women at the BBC saying that they're getting paid illegally less than men to do the same job?
He did explain the.
That's not fair, is
let's
it?
go to the first question. Those are complicated questions. Seven women. Repeat that one. There's
7 women running the top FTSE 100 companies in the UK.
Okay. Well, the first
that's
question
not fair.
might be, why would you want to do that?
Why would a man want to do it?
Holy shit.
I mean, there's a lot of money. It's an interesting
there's
job.
a certain number of men.
Not all men want to do that either.
Who are perfectly willing to sacrifice virtually all of their life to the pursuit of a high-end career. So they'll work. These are men that are very intelligent.
Right.
They're usually very, very conscientious. They're very driven. They're very high energy. They're very healthy. And they're willing to work 70 or 80 hours a week, nonstop, specialized at one thing to get to the top.
So you're saying women are...
Right. Not all men want to be a CEO of a Fortune 500 company or anything like that. No. Some of us just want to retire at 35 36, right? Just make enough for ourselves, maybe buy a home, have a wife, maybe, not sure, because the marriage market, the laws in marriage is not, I'm just saying, you know what I'm saying. And, like, we don't want to be a CEO of any fucking company, man. A lot of us don't want to do that. Most of us don't want to do that. Okay? Personally, I would not want to work 80 hours a week when I'm 35, 36. Hell no. Keep it away, man. At that age, I would just want to have a home, maybe, small land at a countryside, grow some things of my own, eat organic, have some savings at my hand, maybe have some other home where, I just put it on rent so that I can have some rental income and, live out my life with a beer in one hand, my girlfriend on the other side, she also having a beer on her hand, and maybe she can be in a bikini. I don't know. But yeah, that's what I'm saying. This generalization, this woman is against generalization just now, and she is now generalizing men that all men want to be on the top positions. No, 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 sister. No. Only very few men, as he said, who are ready to work 80, 90 hours a week, who are very intelligent, very conscientious, are ready to work on a single skill for the rest of their lives, want to live in a very stressful situation the whole time, where one single decision made by them can mean that their company would just die tomorrow. It's difficult to have that kind of pressure. No, not a lot of men would want to be in that position. She is the one that is making vast generalizations about men. He's not making any generalization about women. No.
Just more sensible. They don't want that because it's not a nice life.
I'm saying that's part of it, definitely. And so I work
So
for.
you don't think there are barriers in their way that prevent them getting to the top
Oh,
of
there
those
are some
companies?
barriers, yeah, like men, for example. I mean, to get to the top of any organization is an incredibly competitive enterprise. And the men that you're competing with are simply not going to roll over and say, please
Exactly.
take the position.
So let me come back to my
absolute
question.
all-out warfare.
Is gender equality a myth?
I don't know what you mean by the question. Men and women aren't the same, and they won't be the same. That doesn't mean they can't be treated fairly.
Is gender equality desirable?
If it means equality of outcome, then almost certainly it's undesirable. That's already been demonstrated in Scandinavia. Because in
What do
Scandinavia,
you mean by that? Equality of outcome is undesirable.
well, men and women won't sort themselves into the same categories if you leave them alone to do it off their own accord. We've already seen that in Scandinavia. It's 20 to 1 female nurses to male, something like that. It might not be quite that extreme, and approximately the same male engineers to female engineers. And that's a consequence of the free choice of men and women.
I didn't know about
this
this
society
in
doesn't
Scandinavia, to be
want
very
any
honest.
other societies to make gender equality the purpose of the law. Those are ineradicable differences. You can eradicate them with tremendous social pressure and tyranny. But if you leave men and women to make their own choices, you will not get equal outcomes.
Right, so you're saying
Now,
that
do you want freedom or do you want...
feminists, call them whatever you want to call them, should basically give up because it ain't going to happen?
Only if they're aiming at equality of outcome.
So you're saying give people equality of opportunity, that's fine.
It's not only fine, it's eminently desirable for everyone, for individuals and for society.
But still women aren't going to make it. That's what you're really saying.
It depends on your measurement techniques. They're doing just fine in medicine. In fact,
There
there
we
are
go.
far more female physicians than there are male physicians.
There are far more teachers
lots of disciplines
that are female.
absolutely dominated by women. Many, many disciplines. And they're doing great. So
let me put something else to you from the book. You say the introduction of the equal pay for
At least
equal
in
work
India.
argument immediately complicates even
Like,
salary
there is like... In India, there are like one male teacher in 15 to 20 female teachers, especially in primary and senior secondary education. Like, in India, there's 10 plus 2. Maybe if you're in America, high school. Even till high school, right? You would find next to no male teachers. Out of all of your school staff, you would maybe find 2 male teachers out of like 20, 30 staff. members. And this is in a metropolitan city like Delhi. Delhi is like Delhi, Mumbai, Chennai, Kolkata are like the, metropolitan tier 1 cities in India. And yeah, women dominate, absolutely dominate the teacher part of occupation. They dominate the medical and medicine part of occupation. No lies was said here.
Beyond practicality, for one simple reason. Who decides what work is equal? It's not possible. So the simple question is, do you believe in equal pay?
Well, I made the argument there. It's like it depends on
So
who
you don't
defines
believe
it.
in equal pay?
No, I'm not saying that at all.
Because a lot of people listening to you will just say, I mean, are we going back to the
That's
dark
because
ages
they're actually
here?
not listening.
I'm
They're just
listening very
projecting
carefully,
what
and
they
I'm
think.
hearing.
Right, she's the projecting. Right, that's the word.
They're
Bhai,
never going to make it on equal terms.
how does this
for
guy
income
think, man?
behind it.
No, I
If
didn't
I
say
was
that.
a young
I said
woman
that equal.
watching that, I would go, well, I might as well just go and play with my Cindy dolls
I
and give
didn't
up
say
trying
that.
at school because I'm not going to get the top job I want. Because
You already have a top job, woman. Why do you think you have a top job?
it's not possible
I
and it's
said
not
that
desirable.
equal
It's going to make
outcomes
you
aren't
miserable.
desirable. That's what I said. It's a
Yeah,
bad
it's not
social
desirable.
goal. I
Yeah.
didn't say that women shouldn't be striving for the top or anything like that, because I don't believe that for a second.
Striving for the top, but you're going to put all those hurdles in their way, as has been in their way for centuries, and that's fine. You're saying that's fine.
No, I really
The
think
patriarchal
I
system
really
is
think
just
that's
fine.
silly. I do. I think that's silly. I really do. I mean, look at your situation. You're hardly unsuccessful.
Yeah, and I have
How do
battled
you
quite
manage
hard
it?
to get where I've got to.
Good
So
for
that's
you.
okay. Battling.
Right.
It's all
It's
about the fight.
inevitable.
But you talk about
Oh.
men
Why
fighting. I mean, let me
wouldn't
just
you
put another thing to you from the book.
Why
You're
wouldn't
saying
you have to
real.
battle for a high quality position?
Right.
Well, I notice in your book you talk about real conversations between men containing, quote, an underlying threat of physicality.
Oh, there's no doubt about that.
What about real conversations between women? Is that something, or are we sort of too amenable and reasonable?
No, it's just that the domain of physical conflict is sort of off limits for you.
Well, you
It's
just said
rather
that
Right.
I fought to get where I've got.
Yeah, but
What does that make me?
So
A
who-
property man or
I
something?
don't imagine
Did you-
to some degree, I suspect you're not very agreeable.
So that's the thing. Successful women. I'm not very agreeable.
Right.
But
I've noticed that
successful-
actually in this conversation.
At least
And
we
I'm
can have
sure
a
it
joke about it.
served your career well.
Successful women, though, basically have to wear the trousers, in your view. They have to sort of become men to succeed.
No, they have to have masculine traits. Anyone who has some masculine traits would be successful. It does not have to be men. There are females that have masculine traits. There are men who have feminine traits. How is this so difficult for this woman to understand, man? They're speaking English. This guy is speaking English, right? Or is it? She has like a British accent. So, is this a British thing? Is that what is going on here?
To fight to succeed,
If they're
therefore
going to
I'm an
compete
honorary
against
man.
men, certainly masculine traits are going to
Right.
I mean, one of the things I do in my counseling practice, for example, when I'm consulting with women who are trying to advance their careers, is to teach them how to negotiate and to be able to say no and to not be easily pushed around and to be formidable. And you need to, if you're going to be successful, you need to be smart, conscientious, and tough.
Well, here's a radical idea. Why don't the bosses adopt the male bosses, shall we say, adopt some female traits so that women don't have to fight and get their sharp elbows out for the pay rises? It's just accepted if they're doing the same job, they get the same pay.
All right. First, let's just listen to his answer.
I would say partly because it's not so easy to determine what constitutes the same job.
But that's because, arguably,
Yeah.
there are still men dominating our industries, our society, and therefore they've dictated the terms for so long that women have to battle to be like the men.
No, it's not true. It's not true. So, for
Where's the
example,
evidence?
well, I can give you an example very quickly. So I worked with women who worked in high-powered law firms in Canada for about 15 years, and they were as competent and put together as
Yeah,
anybody
you
would
if
ever meet
you are working in a
trying to
law
figure out
firm.
how to further their careers. And there was a huge debate in Canadian society at that point that was basically
Okay, he's a
along the
Canadian.
same lines as your argument, is that if the
Okay.
law firms didn't use these masculine criteria, then perhaps women would do better. But the market sets the damn game. It's like,
And the market is dominated by men.
no,
So
it's
what I'm
not. It's
asking
not.
you-
The market is dominated by women. They make 80% of the consumer decisions.
Right.
That's not the case
What?
at all.
If you're
And the
talking
market
about
is dictated totally by consumer
looking
decisions.
after children, by and large, they are still women, so they're going out doing the shopping. But that is changing.
They make all
Anyway,
the
what I want
consumer
to ask
decisions.
you. Okay, so
The
what I want to
market is
ask you-
driven by
okay,
women, not men.
Right.
Okay?
Right.
And if you're a
And
lawyer
they
in
still
Canada,
pay more for the same sort of goods. That's been proven that men for the
You don't have to pay the same for the. Why do you want?
pink one. Anyway, we'll come on to that.
it's partly because men are less agreeable. Right. So this is how you come up with it.
I want to ask you.
Okay, so this is I would like to tell you something on my experience as well. Even if you want to buy a pencil, a pink pencil and a blue pencil, you don't have to buy a pink pencil. Just buy a blue pencil. Why would you want to pay extra money for a pink pencil or a pink sharpener or a pink pen? Buy a blue pen, just like men. And the pink pen will come down. Like the prices for that pen or a pencil or a sharpener or a geometry box or a pencil box or anything, anything will come down. So I don't know, man. Like, you set the market rules. If you are ready to pay more for it, you will pay more for it. It's as simple as that.
Is it not desirable to have some of those female traits you're talking about? I'd say that's a generalization, but you've used the words female traits. Is it not
Feminine
desirable to have
traits.
some of them
He used
on top of
feminine
it?
traits.
I mean, maybe there wouldn't have
They
been
don't predict
a
success.
banking crisis.
They
if
don't
that had
predict
happened.
success in the workplace.
Right.
The things that predict success in the workplace are intelligence and conscientiousness. Agreeableness negatively predicts success in the workplace. And
So
so
you're
does
saying
high
that-
negative emotion.
You're saying that women aren't intelligent enough to run these top
No,
companies?
I didn't say that at all.
You said that female traits don't predict success.
But I
Femin-
didn't say that
Intelligence and
intelligence wasn't. I didn't say that
do.
intelligence and conscientiousness
Well, you were saying that
weren't female
intelligence and
traits.
conscientiousness by implication are not female traits.
No, no,
He
I'm
said
not saying that.
agreeableness
Not
is a
at all.
female trait and
Absolutely.
non-agreeableness is not a female
No,
trait.
no, they're not.
They
No,
are
the
feminine
the
trait.
data on that's pretty clear. The average IQ for a woman and the average IQ for a man is identical. There is some debate about the flatness of the distribution, which is something that James Damore pointed out, for example, in his memo, but there's no difference at all in general cognitive ability. There's no difference to speak of in conscientiousness. Women are a bit more orderly than men, and men are a little bit more industrious than women. But the difference isn't big. But
I know
that
plenty of-
averages into
Plenty of men
conscientiousness.
who aren't necessarily as
Well, of
industrious.
course,
But we'll,
these are-
we'll,
Okay.
we'll
But no,
female
but you
traits,
asked me
though,
a
why
question.
are they not
Feminine traits,
Why
let's
are they
say.
not desirable at the top of
Feminine traits, right.
Why are they not desirable at the top of
It's hard to say. I'm just laying out the empirical evidence. Like we know the traits that predict success.
But we also know, because companies by and large have not been dominated by women over the centuries, we have nothing to compare it to. It's an experiment.
Okay, I'm
True, and it could be the case that if companies modified their behavior and became more feminine, that they would be successful. But
You
there's
seem
no
doubtful about
evidence
that.
for it. I'm not neither doubtful nor non-doubtful. There's no evidence
So why
for
not
it.
give it a go as the radical
the
feminists
evidence-
would
start
say?
your own damn company and give it a go, man.
Someone wants to
Who's
start a
stopping you?
company and make it more feminine and compassionate, let's say, and caring in its overall orientation towards its workers and towards the marketplace.
And it's not like there have never been a company that tried to like be more compassionate with their workers. There have been multiple, like, as far as I've heard, there have been multiple shops that said only women allowed in this shop, and we are only we are serving females cheaper cakes, and we are serving men cakes that are more expensive. For example, the same cake for a female will be this much, which is lower, and the cake for the men, if the men come to buy that cake, it will be more expensive for them, and all of them just went bankrupt. Why do you think they went bankrupt? Let me just give you the answer. Because these industries and these companies basically were betting that the loss that we make on the pastries that we sell to the women, we will make the profit out of the men. Men just didn't go and buy from those stores. That's all women have to do for themselves. What is this woman talking about?
then that's a perfectly reasonable experiment to run. My point is that there is no evidence that those
That
studies
experiment have
are
already
successful.
been ran multiple
There's
times
plenty
by
of studies
feminists
saying
out there
well,
that it
that's
doesn't
not women,
work.
it's women have been in the
It doesn't
workplace
work.
for, what, at least
How will you how can even someone think that agreeableness will I don't know, predict success in work? Like if you're running a company and you're agreeable and some other, like you would not even compete if you're agreeable. Be on let's just be honest about it. You know, someone out there gives you some deal for this much money, you might wanna not agree with them that I want this price for this deal. If you're agreeable, you can never run a company. How can someone even, how did this woman get a post of a lead journalist? I really am not able to comprehend this. She's non-agreeable, that seems to have been working in her favor quite well, but other than that, no comprehension abilities, no listening abilities, is full of bias. Journalist cannot be biased. Already has a narrow viewpoint of the person she is gonna interview and wants to project that viewpoint on that person, doesn't wanna listen to what he has to say for himself. What is she doing? What is Channel 4 doing? What is America, what is West doing? What are you guys doing?
since I've been around, the representation of women in the workplace has been about 50%. So we've run the experiment for a fairly reasonable time.
Right. Women have been in workplace for a very long time, and there are women who are leading a lot of big companies.
And this is, you got in trouble for refusing to call trans men and women by their preferred personal
Oh my
pronouns.
God, this is gonna go into the
No,
trans
that's
debate
not
as well.
true. I got in trouble because I said I would not follow the compelled speech dictates of the federal and provincial government. I actually never got in trouble for not calling anyone anything.
Right.
That didn't
You
happen.
wouldn't follow the change of law, which was designed
Not
to
once it was
outlaw
law.
discrimination.
No,
Right.
no.
Why
Well,
should
that's
your
what they said it was designed to do.
Okay, you cited freedom of speech in that. Why should your right to freedom of speech trump a trans person's right not to be offended?
Because in order to be able to think, you have to risk being offensive. I mean, look at the conversation we're having right now. You know, like you're certainly willing to risk offending me in the pursuit of truth. Why should you?
Holy shit! Just had that moment in real life. You know, when you are having that conversation, and after some time you sit back and think about that conversation, and you go like, I should have said this. I should have said this. This man have had this moment in real life. This is that real life moment. There could not have been an answer that is better than this.
Well, I'm
Holy shit.
very glad I put you on the spot.
Well,
I'm
you
very
get
glad
my
that
point.
I
Holy
exercised my
cow.
freedom.
You get my point. It's like you're doing what you should do, which is digging a bit to see what the hell's going on.
So
And
do
that is
you-
what you should do. But
and
you're
you
exercising
think-
your freedom of speech to certainly risk offending me. And that's fine. I think more power to you as far as I'm concerned.
Except you haven't sat there and I'm just trying
Ha, gotcha.
You haven't got me. I'm trying to put it through in my head.
See.
Yeah, it took a while.
It did, yeah.
Took a while. You have voluntarily come into the studio and agreed to be questioned.
Mhm.
A trans person in your class has come to your class and said they want to be called.
And that's never
she.
happened. And I would call them she.
So you would. So you've kind of changed your tune on that.
No, I said that right from the beginning. What I said at the beginning was that I was not going to cede the linguistic territory to radical leftists, regardless of whether or not it was put in law. That's what I said. And then the people who came after me said, oh, you must be transphobic and you'd mistreat a student in your class. It's like, I never mistreated a student in my class. I'm not transphobic, and that isn't what I said.
Well, except you've also called trans campaigners authoritarian, haven't you? I mean, isn't that
Well,
grossly
only in the
insub-
broader context of my claims that radical leftist ideologues are authoritarian,
Yes, but
which they
you're
are.
saying someone who's trying to work out their gender identity, who may well have struggled with that, had quite a
No
tough
doubt
time
have
over the
struggled
years.
with it. Yeah.
You're comparing them with, Chairman Mao, who
Okay, so this thing, I'm sorry to cut him in between. This thing, why is it so bad if someone calls you a transphobe? Because like with a lot of things that is going on in the Western culture right now, as far as I can see from an outsider perspective, you ask any question from anyone, you are basically a phobe. You ask any question about Islam, you're an Islamophobe. You ask any question about you go get a little critical about anything that the transgender community is saying. You go like, maybe this is something that is wrong here. You are automatically a bigot. So in light of all those things, Mr. Jordan Peterson also went like, I'm not a transphobe. Even if asking a small question can label you, can give you a label of a transphobe, then why the heck does it matter anyway then? Like, I am a transphobe then, man. Like, whatever helps your gear, I guess. Why like, this is something that I do wonder sometimes. Why do you guys wanna have validation from the people that you do not agree with? You do not agree with them, right? Why do you need validation from them then? And the moment you say, fine, I'm a transphobe, like, can we move on now and have a discussion about this? Or do you want to just, run your mouth there and just shout bigot here? Because if you want to do that, then fine, like, there's no discussion here. Let's let someone else come and talk to me then, who is ready to have a conversation. The moment you do that, they do not have any ammo. Because at the end of the day, virtue signaling is what they do, only virtue signaling. The moment you take that power away from them, that fine, go ahead, I'm a transphobe, fuck it, they're powerless against you. And then you guys can actually have a conversation if they are ready to have a conversation. So I don't know, like, this guy is a very, very, very intelligent individual as far as I can see. He is very articulate. He knows what he's talking about. He's very careful. Uh, you know, he's very careful about what he says, and he calculates everything that comes out of his mouth. Very calculative individual, and he's a clinical psychologist. So I don't know. Maybe here, like, you can just say, "Yeah, I'm a transphobe." And I'm saying this to anyone who is watching this as well. If you're a transgender individual, I'm not saying that I do not, agree with whatever you had to go through and all of those. Those are not my experiences. I'm just against this thing where if someone asks your community any question, or someone is even a little bit critical about what you're doing, right? You would shout bigot to them, even though since the beginning of the time, the people that you call cisgender, right, any actions that they might have taken that goes against the role that society has designated for them, they have been questioned about it, and they have had to give a logical justification for it from since the beginning of the time. Why shouldn't be you guys want to be equal, right? So equality comes with its own price. Yeah, like, you will be questioned, and you have to have a logical answer for those questions. This, calling everyone a bigot is not gonna work for far too long, because comedians are catching up to you guys now. In this day and age, comedians, even if you go like 3 years ago, they never used to make any jokes about transgender people, or people in minorities or anything like that. But now they are making jokes primarily about transgender. Any big comedian you ask, Ricky Gervais, Dave Chappelle, there's Bill Maher, there's Joe Rogan, there's a lot of these people who are considered liberal and left leaning people, they are starting to make jokes about you guys now. Okay, and the more you push back on them, the more they will push back on you, and they have got clout. You don't. I'm telling you. Ask this to the people. I don't know, man. This someday or the other, this was gonna catch up to you guys anyway, and this is now catching up. Okay, and you don't want to push back against these people. You have to have answers for the questions these people are, asking you. Otherwise, get ready to be ripped on.
No, just the
Saw the
activists.
deaths of millions of people. Well,
Just the
even if the
activists.
activists, they're trans people too. They have a right to say these things.
Yeah, but they don't have
Isn't
a
it
right to
grossly
speak for their whole
insensitive
community.
to compare them to Chairman Mao or, I could Pinochet, Augusto Pinochet. I mean, this is grossly insensitive.
No, I
isn't it?
didn't compare them to Pinochet.
Well,
I did compare them to
he
Mao.
was an authoritarian.
He's a
wasn't he?
right-winger, though. I was comparing them to the left-wing totalitarians. And
Okay,
I do believe they
Mao-
are left-wing
Mao-
totalitarians.
Under Mao, millions of people died.
Right.
I mean, there's no comparison between
That's-
Mao and a trans activist, is there?
Why not?
Because trans activists aren't killing millions of people?
The philosophy that's guiding their utterances is the same philosophy.
Exactly.
The consequences are.
Not yet.
Yet.
You're saying
Oh.
leads to the deaths of millions of people. What
No,
they're
I'm
doing-
saying that the philosophy that drives their utterances is the same philosophy that already has driven us to the deaths of millions of people.
Okay, tell us how that philosophy is in any way comparable.
Sure, that's no problem. The first thing is that the philosophy presumes that group identity is paramount. That's the fundamental philosophy that drove the Soviet Union and Maoist China. And it's the fundamental philosophy of the left-wing activists. It's identity politics. It doesn't matter who you are as an individual. It matters who you are in terms of your group identity.
You're just
That's
saying these
murderous-
things, though, to provoke, aren't you? I mean,
Not
you
a
are a
bit.
provocateur.
I never said
You're like
anything.
the old.
You are the one asking those provoking questions.
You want to stir things up.
I'm only a provocateur insofar as when I say what I believe to be true, it's provocative. I don't provoke. Maybe for
You
humor
don't set out to
now
provoke.
and then. I'm not interested in provoking.
But what
Not in
about the thing
least.
about, fighting and the lobster? Tell us about the lobster.
Lobster?
Well, that's quite a segue. Well, the first chapter I have in my book is called Stand Up Straight with Your Shoulders Back. And it's an injunction to be
All right.
combative.
Message taken.
Not least to further your career, let's say, but also to adopt a stance of ready engagement with the world and to reflect that in your posture. And the reason that I write about lobsters is because there's this idea that hierarchical structures are a sociological construct of the Western patriarchy. And that is so untrue that it's almost unbelievable. And I use the lobster as an example because the lobster, we divulged from lobsters in evolutionary history about 350 million years ago, common ancestor. And lobsters exist in hierarchies, and they have a nervous system attuned to the hierarchy. And that nervous system runs on serotonin, just like our nervous systems do. And the nervous system of the lobster and of the human being is so similar that antidepressants work on lobsters. And it's part of my attempt to demonstrate that the idea of hierarchy has absolutely nothing to do with sociocultural construction, which it doesn't.
Let me just get this straight. You're saying that we should organize our societies along the lines of the lobsters.
I'm
No,
saying that it's inevitable
no.
that there will be continuity in the way that animals and human beings organize their structures. It's absolutely inevitable. And
He's
there
not
isn't
saying that you
30
should do it.
billion
He's saying
years
that this
of
has been
history
happening and this will
behind
keep
that.
on happening.
Right? That's so long that a third of a billion years ago, there weren't even trees. It's a long time. You have a mechanism in your brain that runs on serotonin that's similar to the lobster mechanism that tracks your status. And the higher your status, the better your emotions are regulated. So as your serotonin levels increase, you feel more positive emotion and less negative emotion.
So you're saying, like the lobsters, we're hardwired as men and women to do certain things, to sort of run along tram lines, and there's nothing we can do about it.
No, I'm not saying there's nothing we can do about it because it's like in a chess game, right, there's lots of things that you can do, although you can't break the rules of the chess game and continue to play chess. And your biological nature is somewhat like that, is it sets the rules of the game, but within those rules you have a lot of leeway. But the idea that, but one thing we can't do is say that hierarchical organization is a consequence of the capitalist patriarchy. It's like, that's patently absurd. It's wrong. It's not a matter of opinion. It's seriously wrong.
Aren't you just whipping people up into a state of anger and
Not at all.
Divisions between men and women? You're stirring people up. You know, any critics of you online get absolutely lambasted by your followers. You've
And
got to
by
call
me,
them off, haven't
generally.
you? Sorry, your critics get lambasted by you. I mean,
If
isn't
they're
that
academics.
irresponsible?
Not at all. If an academic is going to come
Okay.
after me and tell me that I'm not qualified and that I don't know what I'm talking about,
So
like,
you're
it's
not going to say to
seriously
your
not the
followers
same.
That's
now,
really, he
"Quit
shouldn't
reading
have
books
said
in your
that.
anger."
Well, we'd need
I
some
think.
substantial examples of the abuse and the anger before I could detail that question.
There's a lot of it out
So,
there.
well, let's take a more general perspective on that. So I've had 25,000 letters since June, something like that, from people who told me that I've brought them back from the brink of destruction. And so I'm perfectly willing to put that up against the rather vague accusations that my followers are making the lives of people that I've targeted miserable.
Jordan Peterson, thank you.
My pleasure. Nice talking with you.
I don't think he should have said, when she said that your people that disagree with you are basically lambasted completely by your followers. And then he said, and sometimes by me as well. Like, this is not, he might not be wrong in saying that, but it's like you should choose your battles carefully, right? Just they don't really need to say it, because those kind of, those lines, those things actually help your enemies in making it so, like, oh, look, we are the victim here, and look, he agrees that his followers are, bunch of a-holes who are, targeting us for just being critical of Jordan Peterson, and he is also, I don't know, provoking them and appreciating them for this, and all of these things. Like, these kinds, this small line creates headlines and makes it easier for his enemies and his critics to target him. I don't know, like, I don't know the man completely, but I'm sure this must have happened. This must have happened because this interview just sucks. This interviewer just plain sucks. She is completely out of her depth. She has no idea what she's talking about. She had no comprehension skills. She has no idea what to question him, and I don't think she has even read the books that she was quoting him from. I'm sure there must be some junior associate that is working under her, that just gave out these lines to her, and she just, read those lines from the top, and based on those lines without any explanation, because she did not get those explanations on those lines, she just made this image of this person in her mind, and she's just trying to project that image constantly throughout this interview onto him. And he is so articulately, so meticulously explaining why he said all those things, what the reason behind, what is the reason behind the things that he said, and explaining her step by step. And but because she has that image in her mind, she does not even want to listen to what he has to say. This interview is just disaster. No wonder people are, all about, all gaga about this interview. This is just stupid, man. I really want to look at some comments here, because I'm sure Peterson, I'm right-handed. Newman, so you're saying everyone should cut off their left. Exactly. This is what this woman was doing throughout this interview. This interview should be studied by all debate classes. Every time she says, so you're saying, you can be 100% sure that he didn't say that. People have this capacity in them to set the world straight. Cathy, so you're saying you want to get rid of gay. So, so yeah, I'm not the only one who realized what she's doing, and this interview was a complete disaster. I'm shocked she didn't lose her career. Of course, she didn't lose her career. She must have played the victim card here. I am 100% sure. She's a woman, and she has this view in her mind that everyone who is not a straight white man has, is a victim of the straight white man in this world. As a straight brown man, no, I'm not a victim of a straight white man. Trust me. This is women birth 100% of the baby, so you're saying all women have to have kids. This interview was just a disaster, and I really want to know how to think like this guy. He was so immaculate in answering everything that this woman had to ask. She threw everything she has on him, and there's a saying that you do not debate with a crazy person, because that crazy person will bring you down to their level and will defeat you on their level. He literally had a debate with a crazy person, and he did not let her drag him to her level, even though she tried multiple times by saying, so you're saying, so you're saying, so you're saying. He didn't let her do it. He was straightforward with what he had to say. He knew what he was talking about. I really want to check out some other interviews of this person. I'm gonna maybe look at this one after this. It's a long one, so the video might come in parts. So yeah, like guys, if you want me to look into that interview as well, do comment in the comment section. Do tell me your views about it. Do tell me, did I make perfect sense of what this interview was about? I'm an outsider here. I don't know a lot about the Western society, right? But still, I am pretty interested in learning your viewpoints about it. I appreciate it if you have watched this video completely. Like this if you like this, dislike it if are people who just do not agree with me or this person. Tell me about the reason though, right? I would really appreciate it. And if I could show my dislikes, I would definitely, but YouTube does not allow it. So yeah. Thank you very much for tuning into this video, and I'll see you next time with another great video on this channel. Bye bye, Tata. See you and peace.